Hello, one and all. Welcome to the A to the K Wrestling Show. Joining us today is the man behind one of Scottish wrestling's finest institutions, the World Wrestling League, W3L, the awesome Mike Musso. Mike, thanks for being here, man. How are you?
Thanks for having me on, guys. Excited to be here. I'm doing good. Doing good. Start of a new year. I go on
Hmm.
holiday for a week in a week's time, so I'm
Jealous.
very excited. I'm counting down the days to it.
No, don't blame me.
Very nice.
So obviously, Carl mentioned obviously we wanted to talk about your career, about W3L, yeah, W3L. No, I thought I said that wrong then. So I figured we started. We could obviously a lot of wrestling fans, such as ourselves, they dream of starting their own promotion and such like that. So I think figured we
Watch it.
started.
That's
We
a
could by
slippery slope.
I can imagine. But that's where I thought we started there and just sort of ask sort of what sort of motivated you to start the World Wrestling League back in 2003, I think it was.
Yeah, so 2003, I would have been 17, 18, so just a young pup. Um,
Mm.
And what you have to remember with the sort of W3L origin story, for lack of a better term, is it was
Mm.
a completely different landscape to how it was now, how it
Yeah, of
is now.
course.
Now, if anything, we're oversaturated with wrestling rather than starved of it. But back then, I broke in 2001. I had my first match when I was 15, so this will be 25 years in wrestling for me in
Oh.
2026, which makes me feel really, really old. Um, but yeah, so I had my first match in 2001. Started and that was with the sort of older British guys that were still touring. You've probably heard of the now legendary tribute shows that were touring the country back then. Did you? You may have even been lucky enough to attend some of them.
I think we've been to one or two. I think we've seen a few Undertakers and things like that
Mm.
in our time.
But
Yeah.
no, yeah, obviously we're fans of the British scene. Very limited in how many we could go to live, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah,
When did you guys start watching wrestling? And
For me, it was like 1992 when I was like four, like that 92 Royal Rumble, as we just had it on VHS, and I just kept just watching it all the time. To be fair, that was kind of and a great Royal Rumble to get into really because it was
yeah,
one of the best.
yeah. I was a bit later on. I was more early Attitude Era. I
Yeah,
suppose it was like 99, 2000 time. I suppose that's when it was at a fever pitch for everyone. Like you
yeah.
remember it yourself, like the world was just in love with wrestling at that point. So high school, everyone was into it, wasn't
Yeah.
they? And we just sort of stuck
what
with it.
about live sort of British events?
To be honest, we only went to a few in like
Yeah.
probably when we were like the first one we probably went to, we were like 13, 14 or something, weren't we? It was in Ormskirk. It was like the American wrestling or whatever, and we had like
Yeah.
Undertaker came out to bloody
I was at Hell's Bells,
Hell's Bells and
ACDC
stuff
Hell's
like
Bells.
that. So
Oh,
But yeah, we were going to like local shows because it was at our age and obviously with travel and expense and stuff, it was hard to sort of get to different events.
yeah.
So as Carl mentioned, we went to like one in Ormskirk and Liverpool, as you can probably tell from the accents. And what was did we go down to? Was it Kent or somewhere? No, that's Kent sounds too. Stoke or somewhere at one point as well.
But we went to the WWE show and was it
Or
like
was that
Was it
WWE?
Newcastle or Sheffield somewhere? But yeah, we only went to a few to be fair.
so do you know if it was like, was it Brian Dixon or was it one of the other? Could it,
I
because
think
there
it
was
was
a
probably
few.
yeah, I think it might have been a Brian Dixon one to be fair.
Okay.
It was one of the big like
So
American wrestling ones.
my
Yeah.
my first night was selling foam hands for Brian Dixon in the Edinburgh Playhouse of all venues. I don't think wrestling's
Wow.
ever been there since. February of 2001. Um, Barbarian was on the card,
Wow.
and
Nice.
The Undertaker. One was a tribute, one wasn't. But the next time they sort of said to me at the end, we're going to be back in Scotland in a month's time if you come here, here, and here. And the first of those dates was the Caird Hall in Dundee. Now, I don't know if this was a change in plan, like some
Hmm.
that shows transferred ownership, or if it was a wind up. Because I turned up at the Caird Hall and it was not a Brian Dixon event. It was being run by a man called Klondike Jake, who
Right.
was on television in the World of Sport era and ran a very similar set up to Dixon at the time with the, it was led by the tribute sort of act. So I turned up and they're like, "Who's this guy? No, we're not having you in." And then somebody had been, it may have even been Blondie Barrett, was like, "No, he was in Edinburgh. He's all right. Let him in. He'll help." And we just show him a few things and he's happy to help. So we got back in with this lot now as well. And it was Klondike Jake Hawkins and Ian McGregor ended up partnering with him as well. I don't know if you're familiar with Ian. He may even still be running the odd show now.
Oh, wow.
Not met him for a long time, maybe 15 years ago. I last worked for the man, but they were all a very similar setup at the time. And they would bring in an American and a return show to the Caird Hall. They brought in Jake the Snake Roberts, and our job, me and my friend Ian, who now still wrestles in Canada. I don't know how active he is, but last time I checked, he was still wrestling. Our jobs were to look after Jake. And of course, Jake was in the process of setting up his training school, and that's when we didn't abandon the older British guys that we'd been touring with and learning the ropes from, but we started to be more infatuated with, let's go down and train with Jake, and because he was,
of course, yeah.
he was Jake. We grew up watching him on television, so it wasn't it wasn't really a tough sell for Jake to get us to go down there, and spent the next year or two going down to London every couple of weeks. At least once a month, would go down, get the overnight coach, and then a train from London to St Albans, where the training school was, train with Jake and come back up. I wanted to get more experience, travel and do other things. So I'd managed to get a student work visa in Canada, and I was going to go over and train over there. Now, I don't know how I got it in my head that this is something I wanted to do, but I thought I'm going to run a show in my hometown before I leave, because that was clearly something 17-year-old me or 18-year-old me needed to do. And that was the first W3L show. It wasn't, I don't think I thought at the time it was going to turn into a promotion in a few years later, once I got back and sort of surveyed the environment and was like, "God, there's even less wrestling here now," because the older guys had actually stopped touring or stopped touring as much. So fast forward a couple of years, that one sort of, I want to run one show in my hometown before I go to Canada for a year, ended up being something I revisited a couple of years later and launched W3L, purely because there was nowhere else. There was nowhere local, certainly not in Fife, where I'm based. There was promotions through in Glasgow, and by the time I got back in 2004, 2005, the Glasgow wrestling scene had started, but that's the other side of the country. So there was genuinely a gap in the market. And I guarantee you that nobody that starts a wrestling promotion today, and nobody that started a wrestling promotion for the past probably 15 years, has noticed that there's a gap in the market, because there isn't. There's a wrestling show every 3 miles. There's a wrestling show, but it was please, no 17-year-olds out there think that it's okay to run a wrestling show now. Different. Do as I say, not as I do,
No, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy to think, as you said, you've been 25 years in the business, 23 of them as obviously, runner of W3L. How have you kind of found the change, obviously, from running like that first show and, the first few maybe in front of like dozens of people through kind of to where you are today, where, bigger crowds, higher production value, like what's been like the biggest lesson that you've kind of learned along the way?
It's it's like and day. You won't see. There's no plans to release footage from that first show, because cringe. You might see some pictures or a little highlight or a clip. But put it this way, the entranceway was giant W3L letters that I'd made in my parents' garage and painted. I'll send you guys a picture of it. You can maybe flash it up on the screen, because I looked this out. I said the same thing to Pete, that looks after hooked on wrestling TV, you guys will know.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had the same conversation. I said, I'll have to find a picture of the original entranceway. Parts of it are probably still in my mum and dad's loft. That's like, like a wrestling museum of stuff that I used to just bung it up in the parents' loft that can
Need to
stay there.
bring it out for like an anniversary show
Yeah,
or
do like a
something.
nostalgic throwback and
Maybe
blow it.
dig it out. But yeah, there's a picture of this old entranceway, and then I put it side by side with our entrance set up today, which is, the screen, the lights, the trussing, and all that kind of stuff. Wrestling, it used to just be a ring in a hall. That was it. It was a ring in a hall. And now there's a production desk, and you're like, how did we get from A to B? But I think, I mean, we could have done it. We could have done it faster than 23 years, but I do think it was important to pace, because I've seen a lot of people not be aware of where the need to put the work in is. Now, 10 years in, again, the early shows it was like the Wild West, but 10 years in, looking at production before you've got that really honed your skills as a promoter and as a, like as a business with a team around you, there is people worrying about entrance videos before, there's 30 people there. You can have the nicest sort of entranceway ever, but if you don't know how to run a wrestling event and put people in the seats, which is key to, they call it the wrestling business, not the wrestling,
Yeah.
let's just do some matches with nobody watching. I really wanted to learn how to be a wrestling promoter alongside, my own wrestling career itself. And I did sort of model myself. I looked at what was Brian Dixon doing, and his shows are packed all the time. And the indie style shows had like a tiny percentage of that audience that your Dixon style shows was getting. Yet everybody was trying to be Ring of Honor or, like whatever the cool indie of the day was, instead of looking at and almost kind of mocking the touring shows, instead of learning from them and being like, well, what are they doing? What are they doing, and how can we get that success and actually be able to get enough people in the door to make this viable? And it was only once I felt I had that in hand that I then looked at, right, how do we start to look at the more television style wrestling approach and take the sort of W3L touring model, because we do tour. We've ran shows from the Highlands all the way down to Leeds. How do we take that and start to look at more of the TV style wrestling and say to the indie wrestling fans, you're actually going to see some good matches here as well. It's not just for kids, we're not the kiddies touring wrestling show. Yes, our marketing may be quite similar to that, and that's because we need to sell tickets, and that's what sells. But that doesn't mean that we're not passionate about putting out a good wrestling product. And going hand in hand with that was advancing the production. I always joke sitting at the desk now that it's almost like flying a plane. We've got a laptop for sound, a laptop for lights. We've only recently retired our dimmer. You may notice, get too technical, but you may notice that there's a slight change in the look of our product from anything we taped from December last year onwards. I loved the yellow glow that we had. If you look at our footage, we had a yellow sort of glow to the ring, and it was from the old school halogen lights instead of LEDs. And I loved the glow, but logistically, they were all connected by like a spider type cable connecting them all to each other. And we had the LEDs as well, because you can't do color with the halogens, at least not with the setup we had. And I finally bit the bullet. Was like, oh, we're gonna have to get rid of the halogens, aren't we? So now we've got more LEDs to get enough light, but it's that sharper white light, which is kind of the
Yeah,
standard. It's what all the rest of the promotions have it. But I do
Yeah,
miss my yellow halogens. They were nice.
I have to
They
try
were
and
nice.
replicate the glow
that's
with
it. But
the.
no, you're right. It does have like a warmer glow to it, doesn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah,
you've
crazy.
sorry, go on.
Go crazy the difference between how
Yeah,
we started and where we're at now
Yeah,
in terms of the visual presentation.
yeah.
no, absolutely.
I mean, you've sort of alluded to it in what you were saying there, but you obviously, there's sort of two parts to it, really. For running a wrestling promotion, you've got the sort of creative passion, and then the sort of business reality of it, I suppose. So I just wondered, so what is it like, sort of trying to balance both sides, and I suppose which have you found to be the sort of hardest to deal with?
It's I don't know if because I think quite logically,
Mm.
um, I've found balancing that easier. What I suppose I've found difficult is explaining to other people that want to, you want to work with somebody on a business level, and the first thing they want to do is talk creative because it's fun.
Yeah,
It's art. It's you're creating something. Whereas and I've had to really find more delicate ways of being like, whoa, 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 whoa. How are we advertising this? Logistically, how are we budgeting it? And for the longest time, the way I communicated that gave off a vibe of Mike hates wrestling. Like, because I didn't want to talk about no, I don't. I love it enough to try and understand how it can be successful and run well and run, you know, what I'd love to see is more people actually being able to earn a living from wrestling in
yeah,
this country like they used to. Like you
Yeah,
mock
yeah,
those,
100%.
not you, but people mock those tribute shows that were going on back when I was starting out. But those guys they didn't have other jobs. Even then in
Yeah,
the 90s and early 2000s, there was the tail end of them being able to tour pretty much full time. They'd do 14 days on the road wrestling, and then they'd do a week, 2 weeks postering for the next 7 days, and it was a job. It was probably not the best paid job, and that's where the love came in. They did it because they loved it, and they were
yeah,
able to keep doing it because they treated it like a business. And it went from that to I saw this on Raw last week, and that's what I want to do on my show, and heads in the clouds,
yeah,
through loving it, but not, in my opinion, not understanding what's actually best for it being wrestling.
yeah,
You can be in danger of turning a business that you want to be a part of into a hobby that's never going to be more than that for you because you're not trying to understand it as a business. But to be
yeah.
clear, I do love wrestling, and that's what I've stuck at it for
No, it's
25,
fair. I think
25
the
years.
the way you put it at the beginning there, saying like, they want to get to that fun bit, the creative bit. Like, I think that sort of clarifies it, doesn't it? Really, is like, I suppose people do want to skip the more boring is probably not the right word, but the more business end.
yeah. You definitely need to have the passion, I think, to do that line of work, don't
Mm.
you? Especially to be in it for bloody 25 years and be doing it for 23 as a booker. But we touched on it a little
Wrestlers as
bit.
well, though.
Mm.
Wrestlers as well, even if you're not wanting to be a promoter as such. Like, if a wrestler can understand different parts of the business, because this is me speaking as purely a promoter now,
No,
that's
of
more
course, yeah,
valuable to me. If you know how to, if you're coming at me and say, "Oh, I can wrestle," I say, "Oh, great." So can 150 other people in my mailbox every week, like the one of the 14 spots that I've got. If you say I can wrestle, and I'm also quite good with sound because I worked as a sound engineer for blah blah blah, or I've been learning at college to do DMX lighting, but you've got these other skills, you know, looking outside everything being about the fun part of wrestling will give you more opportunity to do what you find fun and what you're enjoying. Like you
yeah.
have to understand the bigger picture, and a lot of people think that's me being a spoiled sport saying that instead of just actually trying to help
Yeah, no, that's
myself,
really sound.
everybody else, and the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really sound advice though. As you say, like everyone's just like, oh, I'm a wrestler. It's like learning as much about it as you
Yeah,
can is just has so
the
much.
bigger picture idea in it.
Yeah, there's so much benefits. I mean, we touched briefly on it before, talking about like the fans and stuff like that. Like I think everybody thinks like everyone plays fantasy poker.
Yeah.
Everyone
I mean,
thinks it's
we
like
certainly do.
if we certainly do on the show. But I think that probably like I think a lot of people maybe think running a promotion is quite easy. It's like oh, just throwing a few matches together and booking it. I'm just curious as someone who's in the weeds of it and does this as like for 23 years, what are some of the kind of least glamorous but maybe most critical jobs that fans would never even think about that go into kind of running a promotion?
Three least glamorous jobs. Um,
As you say, like, the wrestlers are like, oh, I just want to get to the story and the fun stuff. Like, what's the stuff that is just like, yeah, people don't realize you've got to do?
um, I mean, first, I have to share this because it popped in my head. Three least glamorous jobs. We'll get there. I'll hit it. But when you said about fantasy booking, like I legit had somebody that wanted to do that kind of thing, and their suggestion was like a list of 4 or 5 Americans that I would fly over for these angles.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah,
Definitely make your money back
just
on
a
that.
few dozen flights in it.
Yeah, easy.
I think we were going to get Metallica in live to perform one of their entrance themes or something, all at the local community hall. So
Yeah.
yeah, three least glamorous jobs. Postering.
Huh?
Um,
Hmm.
Postering is still the. I used to say it was the bread and butter, and now posters are maybe the bread and Facebook's the butter,
Mm.
because Facebook advertising works really well for us,
Hmm.
and it certainly 10 years ago, it was maybe starting to go that way. 15 years ago, it certainly was just a little extra add-on. But the posters still do really well. You hear, you find out how did you find out about the event? And it's a family that brought their kids. So I saw a poster in the high street. I saw a flyer in the chip shop.
Oh, nice.
Get your marketing out there. And what's really depressing is W3L has run we number our tickets to just for some reason I started that right at the very beginning as I put a code
Hmm.
of each ticket like W3L 002 would have been the second show and it's gone from there. So we're at like 320 shows or something like that. That's live ticketed events. That doesn't include
Yeah,
like hired events,
Yeah.
probably double that. But if I spend, I would say on average at least 2 days per show putting up posters. That means I've spent almost 2 years of my life postering.
Yeah.
wow.
That's the most depressing statistic that I will ever give. How like and you go into a shop, right? And you do the spiel event coming up. Would it be okay to put a poster up anywhere? And then I say I've got the blue tack and sell it. And then they're like, "Oh, you've got your own blue tack," as if it's yeah, I've done this before.
I love
What?
it.
Like,
This guy's a pro. He's got
The
his
little
own.
inside one a minute. Blue tack, it's key.
Exactly,
it's
yeah.
almost like it's really cute. He's brought his own blue tack with him. And if slacking a poster up using tape was an Olympic sport, I would probably have the world record. If we're saying like we're going to put 4 posters up on each shop window. There's 2 abandoned shops. One side of the road, I've got maybe somebody else with me doing the other. I'll have done 4 and the other person's still doing the first one because of that sad fact that I've spent 2 years of my life doing that.
Insane.
So,
If there was some kind of like, world record or, some kind of postering Olympics, then definitely
doesn't if you actually counted how many posters I'd put up, that would probably be a more depressing fact instead of how many days I'd spent doing it.
so you couldn't even do
But
the
yeah,
maths.
Carl's
that's
loving this because you love stats.
I got a spreadsheet, get it going.
Well, do you know what? I
it's
do find that really fascinating that like the posters are still like, and I suppose it makes sense because you kind of like we certainly find from our podcast and that you're at the like the what's the word? The behest of the algorithm, like in terms
Yeah.
of what gets seen on social medias. And I'm not sort of downplaying the importance of social media, but it's kind of nice to know the posters are still having that effect,
Yeah,
and it makes sense because that's your audience in it. It's the locals.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely.
Sorry,
You,
digressed a little.
I describe it as you want to look like your brand has vomited all over the town. Um, but who does, again, like everybody's watching their favorite Japanese wrestling promotion, and
Mm,
not enough people are observing how the circus advertise their events. They're the experts at it.
yeah,
You always know when the circus is in town. You know, that's part of learning the craft as well. You're trying to draw, you're trying, very few people are drawing money by their face being on the poster. You can have somebody that looks the part, you can have
yeah,
somebody that'll make people come back, but there's like very few people that they're just their face on the poster is going to sell the tickets. So
yeah.
understand how you can draw money, observe how can you make money in the business if my face isn't doing it yet, what are the other tricks to pump money into the business that I want to get a wage from? To me, that's again going back to that word logical.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that
But
you look at it really like holistically. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like you're taking like cues and tips from like all these different like industries and things and then just looking at it in the right way, isn't it? Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? As you say, it's not just going, well, oh, WWE do this. It's like you can't compare
But
them.
there's an element of like not having a bruised ego about it as well, because I bet you there's not to make assumptions, but I bet you've got plenty of indie talents who think that their face should sell an event, and
Mm.
there's a reality to it, isn't there? Unfortunately.
Yeah, no, definitely.
yeah, I'll not comment.
No, no, of course.
So obviously we've
Do
got
you know what?
posters.
I do have a story. I do have a story. That get back to the because I've already thought the next most undesirable job that we have to do. But I got this at the earliest point. Like some people are really get really impressed by things that don't matter um measurably, and like they're not going to actually improve the show or the business. It's impressive for the dressing room rather than impressive for the audience that you're trying
Yeah.
to sell to.
Yeah.
And I was using somebody's trainee, and they ended up doing really well for themselves. So I'm not knocking them at all. I'm talking about their trainer.
Mhm.
They better than they've done better than me. I'm not knocking I'm not knocking them at all. But at the time, they were like maybe 16, 17 years old. And they had gone over to do like maybe it was a dart match, but they'd flown themselves to do like a dart match and I got a text message saying that person X has now gone from their trainee wage to like £20 more than anybody else in the card was getting paid. And it's because they worked Dragon Gate last week. And I replied back to the person saying, I don't know who Dragon Gate is, but just because he's had a match with him, it's not going to sell me more tickets. So I can't keep him if he's not going to honor the original price. I kidded on that. I thought it was like another wrestler that he'd. I wanted to kind of highlight. I wanted to pretend to be totally ignorant to what the guy was actually saying, in
Yeah.
order
Mm.
to emphasize my point that the general public aren't going to know. They're not going to know that that's a promotion
Yeah.
that has a
No.
certain degree of that impresses like a hardcore fan. It doesn't impress Jimmy's mum that wants to find somewhere to take her son to see some wrestling that's cheaper than WWE.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Now,
Um,
like to your point, it's impressive to the locker room, but not necessarily
Yeah.
to the audience.
yeah, like great, no, good on him. Let's hope he gets. They might fly him over there and he gets a big stint, and that's brilliant. Doesn't make a difference in Grangemouth Community Hall. It really doesn't.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
and
fair.
again, I'm
Yeah.
really not knocking the accomplishment. I wish it did. I wish it did. I
Yeah.
wish that every little thing we found impressive, the public found impressive as well. Because then there'd be like everybody would be working in wrestling because it'd be the most popular thing on the planet. But
Yeah.
it isn't, and we're not. So, like,
Yeah.
feet on the ground. Um, the advancement in production has resulted in a huge amount of tape being required. Like duct tape, the
Yeah.
taping. Every now and again, you get a floor where you take the tape off and it leaves that residue from the tape.
Oh yeah.
Wiping that off at the end of the night, that has to be one of the worst jobs because it's not even setting up. When you're setting up, you've at least got that, oh, we're setting up, we're going to do the event, we're going to got this going on, there's that buzz. And then afterwards, you're like, we go home now. And there's this tape, and I've had us using WD-40 to get it off. And like, there's been some horrific times doing that job. Luckily, it doesn't happen often. I think we buy better tape now, but every now and again, it just is that whatever the wrong type of tape is to that particular floor. And of course, you don't want to get an extra bill for like 5 hours of
Of course,
cleaning or something. So you get everybody to try and do it, and everybody's pissed off. But you can't just leave it. There's
yeah.
And there's no decent product for removing it either, I found.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, you resort to WD-40, there's a problem.
the play group are in on the Monday morning, and the wrestling was in on the Sunday afternoon. They don't want to come in and there's tape residue everywhere, or maybe the old folks bingo's on. And they don't want tape all over the floor.
Yeah.
I can't think of the
That's got
third
to be
job.
one of the least glamorous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the cleaning up after yourself bit.
Although the first two involve tape in some capacity, so
They're
taping up
actually-
posters or tape
They
up the
do
floor.
actually, yeah. Different types of tape.
Different types of tape.
That would be brilliant actually to go into a shop with a big thing of gaffer tape.
Yeah, just got to try it one time.
Can I pop a poster up? Is that right? It's okay. I've got tape here.
Love it.
Get a hammer out and a nail. Like, just here. Is
Fine
that
on the
all right?
glass.
Yeah, perfect. I can't think of the third worst job.
That's fair.
It
doesn't have to be three. I was just curious. I think
I tell you, one of the most underrated, and I went like it made me really angry when I heard this term used the other week. I heard somebody it said somebody just worked the sales table, like the souvenir stand or the merch table. I don't like the term merch table. It sounds more insider. Like I try not to use anything that's insider. Merch table, no. Souvenir stand. That's a wizard line. One of our commentators. He likes calling it the souvenir stand. I tend to default to sales table.
Yeah, I like sales. It's all encompassing, isn't it?
yeah, I like that.
They just work the sales table. What you mean? They're just responsible for generating the income that's going to make sure everybody gets paid at the end of the night. How disrespectful! Like
Yeah,
that's without them. Like we're gonna like okay, the person that wrestled 2 matches before the interval is going to be on the sales table at the like if it's that unimportant a job, you can't run the event without it. It's not a just. I hate
Yeah.
that any disrespect towards any of the crew. Like
Yeah.
the crew is just as important
Yeah.
to make it all work.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. But like you say, the term just like from what we've seen, like you can see how busy it gets there as well.
Yeah.
Like it's
I think we're both obviously big believers of that. You treat the cleaner as the same as you treat the CEO kind of thing, aren't you? It doesn't matter. Everyone's playing a job and a role, and it's all important. So, yeah, I agree with that. That pissed me off. Okay, so moving on from kind of worst jobs and stuff, then I guess as a promoter, what does the kind of booking process look like in terms of like pulling a card together? You kind of mentioned then you've got, loads of people in the emails and stuff trying to get on shows, but I'm just curious, like, is there months of planning in advance, or do you just kind of have to work around schedules and that kind of thing, or do you literally just go, okay, we've got a show, who's available, and let's just pull it together on the fly?
Um, certainly there was a time that it was who's available, let's pull it together on the fly. And there's never a shortage of people being available.
Mhm.
There's loads of wrestlers. What we tend to do is have a plan for, well, there's a rough, this sounds really like I've kind of gone about, I've kind of spoken about not focusing on creative and not being more logical and business minded. And now I'm going to give an example that uses WWE's booking in WrestleMania as an example. But and I suppose it's because it is actually the most logical way to do it. Right now,
Mm,
I do know what we're planning on doing for next year's resolution.
mm,
I've
Wow.
got we've got me and the key guys that work with me know roughly where we're heading.
Mhm.
And obviously we know resolutions moved to April. Um, Tends to be the month where all the big shows happen. We used to have our big resolution event in October. I wanted to move it to April to kind of bring it into wrestling season, if you like. So
yeah,
we used
makes sense.
summer as a bridge. I didn't want to suddenly have resolution in October and then April rolls around and it's resolution again. So
Yeah.
we used the summer as a bridge and we ran it in the summer for 2 years. And this year it's in its final home of April. Um,
Mm,
so we obviously know what's happening there, and then we kind of work backwards, and that's a really cliched answer, but I think it's the best way of doing it, and it does work. Certainly
Yeah.
for like your main stuff, and then I find it's fun that you can kind of come up with, you can kind of through, right, well, we've got a few months here before we need to really start working towards this end point. What we're going to do for these few months, and then something really fun can organically happen during that
Yeah.
conversation or that sort of brainstorm, and then maybe plans change as a result. Um, but yeah, so it's planned usually a year out with the big picture, and then you fill in all
Mhm.
the pieces as you go. To
Yeah.
me,
No.
that's the best
Yeah, it definitely is. You kind of
booking,
got the
and I feel that that was a really cheap answer because it's something
no, I
people have
mean,
heard on TV like hundreds of times, but it's probably because it works.
well, exactly. I mean, yeah, it's fascinating just to hear how it works. As you say, it's good that you've got the one eye on the kind of destination, but as you say, you can kind of have fun on the journey of how you get there when you work backwards. So,
Yeah,
Have you
no,
I
guys?
suppose, like I say, it's important to keep that in mind, isn't it? Where you want to be.
Yeah, and then you can build up to it and add some undercurrent stories and it's fun being able to do more stories now. Um,
Yeah,
because we have that sort of that thread of the YouTube show and the bigger events. I mean, we've done sort of, for lack of a better term, pay-per-view style events
yeah,
since
yeah,
coming out of the pandemic, I believe.
mm,
I think so. We're sort of 5 years into that now, and since that started, it has been um, that creative that I was like, we can't do that because we've not got the business sorted yet. All of a sudden, we are now able to like look at our YouTube show as the weekly wrestling show and the bigger
mhm,
event that originally we were on Pivot Share, which I believe I think the Progress guys were on that as well. I think everybody was on it
mm,
at one
yeah,
point. And then we had our own platform and then Demand Progress Plus and now Hooked on Wrestling TV, which is where this will air, I think.
yes,
Or is
there
this,
they were.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Um, so now we build to those events and we get to do that creative process that you've always heard the big companies doing, but now we're doing it on this smaller level and getting that kind of following and
yeah,
people talking about the matches that they're excited to see and that they know are coming up. When before, when we didn't have that infrastructure and that following of the sort of what happened last month, what's happening this month, and what do we want to see happening the month after, that there wasn't any point in focusing on that too much. It was very, very loose. We did it, but very, very loose. And now it is something that I enjoy watching the continuity between the weekly show leading up to each bigger event. It's a bit of a reward for all those years, all
yeah.
those days post stream.
yeah. No,
No.
exactly.
Have you guys
Obviously,
watched any
oh,
of the product recently?
Well, yeah. Now that we've got hooked on, we've been able to start getting to grips with it. To be fair,
yeah, yeah.
we hadn't really seen. much of anything, to be honest. And then when we obviously found out you were going to be on Hooked On, we were like, oh, okay, we need to start checking at these guys out. Same with like SAJ and stuff. But
Yeah.
as you say, yeah, we've been impressed with what we've seen so far.
Well, thanks for checking it out.
Yeah.
Like you guys, we've seen a lot of people with the same journey where they've found it on DPP and now hooked on.
Yeah.
And they're maybe a bit further away from where we actually tour, but we've been noticing messages coming in from different locations and stuff. It's good. It's good to see people are.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, if you've done a
tuning in.
show in Leeds, that's not too far down the road. So if you ever come back down this way again, I'm sure we'll.
Liverpool's always a nice place as well.
Yeah,
you know.
When were the last there? Maybe 2022, I think. We've definitely been
see.
since everything opened
Yeah.
back up.
Long overdue.
Yeah, be due
Yeah.
back then.
We'll look at return as long as there's the problem often is it's a bit political. The people you can run somewhere and it does really well, and then somebody else comes in and wants to run it for like £3 a ticket or £5 a ticket and stuff like that. It kills it. And one of those areas down that way that happened. We went from, I mean, our prices I think are reasonable for tickets. It's what you'd expect to pay for a family night out.
Yeah.
But then somebody comes along and they want to, well, we just want loads of people to come, so we have to make it really cheap. And they're just not looking at it a bit as a business, so it doesn't matter to them. They're
Yeah.
not paying anybody, or they're willing to lose money if they are paying people, and they kill it for people that are trying to make wrestling sustainable. But I'll scope out the area, and we'll see what we can do about coming back down to
No, definitely. And you've got WWE go the opposite way and charge like £3,000 for a ticket or something. But
Yeah,
we won't get into
well,
that.
there's a middle ground. There's a middle
There
ground
is.
somewhere there, but
100%.
there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Can I just say there's nothing wrong with £5 a ticket if you're selling 1,000 tickets, and that's
Yeah. As you say, it's the sustainability part of it, isn't
Yeah,
it? It's got to
like
be.
there's a lot of people involved and a lot of people that like need to get paid. So it's
That's it. I think a lot of people to put on the show, and you want to find them.
yeah, like you say, it needs to be sustainable.
£5 a ticket, and you've sold 40 tickets, and you see the promoter counting the money at the end. It looks like he's been busking with his guitar down the high street or something. Yeah, don't do it.
Yeah.
Value. Sustainable wrestling is actually a buzzword that I've had in my head for a while now. It's something I'm going to maybe do something with, because these ideas that I tend to talk about all the time. It's not just for you guys. I try and preach this kind of stuff because I genuinely think it would help if more people thought of this kind of stuff. And sustainable wrestling, and one of you guys said the word just then, but that was the word I had in mind for it, like the buzz phrase for it. Sustainable wrestling. That's what we need in this country. So more of us. Fantastic that the path to WWE is so much clearer than it was 25 years ago, but it's not as fantastic that there's actually there's less people making a full-time living in this country without having to go abroad, and that's what I'd like to see more of. Sustainable wrestling.
Yeah, I love that.
100%. But obviously, you mentioned WWE there and people making a living or people going abroad for that. So it seems a good time to touch on it. Obviously, over the years, W3L has had some of the biggest and best stars coming through, like the likes of Drew McIntyre, Finn Balor, Nikki Cross, Piper Niven, Alba Fyre, and the list goes on. So I just wondered, sort of, how does it feel knowing that you played a part in their careers and seeing so many of them achieve the success they have?
I'm really proud of a lot of those guys, or probably everybody that you mentioned. Well, Finn worked for us once, so that had very little to do with
I had to throw it in there.
Instrumental.
I was at Drew Galloway's first training session.
That's crazy.
That's really cool.
I knew Drew right from the beginning. He couldn't be. He is what you would imagine a wrestling superstar to look like. And I don't think many people have got a bad word to say about him that know him personally. I'm awful for staying in touch. I saw him when he was between contracts, and like we had a great chat. I think we were we were outside a nightclub in Edinburgh, and we bumped into each other like Drew, Mike, and we talked about how we used to do air guitar during the Polaroid picture sessions.
Nice.
Don't know why we did that, but you know, he remembered. um, really nice guy. Couldn't be
Yeah.
happier for him. Um,
Yeah. No, I must say, like we've spoke to others who've sort of encountered Drew or known Drew, and like you say, there's not we don't think we've met anyone who's had a bad word to say about him. Not that we're looking for that, but like you
Yeah.
say, he just seems to be one of the nicer guys in the industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, you've been in the ring with him as well, haven't you? You've obviously you was that his first training one, but you've been in there with him. Did you get that kind of vibe then when you were in there that you were like, okay, this guy could go on to
yeah, like you knew it was different. Like you can tell, probably didn't understand it then
Mm,
because we were both like 3 or 4 years in. I don't think I wrestled Drew. Yeah, I did wrestle. I wrestled Drew um, really early on, and then I
yeah,
Yeah.
tagged with him just before he left. We did
right.
a few tag matches, and when I wrestled him, um, you felt something. I didn't know what it was at the time because I was 3 or 4 years in and he was 3 or 4 years in. But you know now, like now when I lock up with someone, I was like, oh, they get it. You know, like
Yeah.
he had that then, like way before, you know, before I even knew what that was. Like that, the confidence of when you tie up with somebody, which it's hard to describe, but wrestlers will know what I mean if they are at the point where they feel that during the lockup. But looking back, you know, he was just always the way he moved in the ring, the way he was a natural, you know, back then.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
and you know, just before I'm sure I did something in ICW. Like it's the early stages of ICW, it was just a run-in
Yeah.
where I was working as the heel and he was just about to leave for WWE the first time. And I did a bit just where I had to get out is, you know, hit the road because here's somebody 4 inches taller than me. I'm not going to stay in there. But even that, just the timing of it was
Yeah.
Yeah.
pro's pro. Even back then, before he went to WWE, you can't say enough good things about Drew.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and you know some of the other guys as W3L got more into that sort of family style wrestling show touring setup. You know, like a mini All Star. You know, didn't do nearly as many dates. You know, but we would doing 35 to 45 shows a year
Mm.
is actually it's nothing compared to the old Brian Dixon schedule, but that's quite a lot for a little indie promotion.
Oh
So
yeah.
those dates that I would give some of the guys that ended up going there certainly would have helped them along their way. Um,
Yeah.
Tell you who else is a really nice person, Nikki.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll find anybody that has a bad word to say about Nikki either. Again,
Yeah.
delighted for her that she's had a job with WWE for so long. Um,
Yeah. Now she's been killing it as well, and she with
Yeah.
obviously changed up a gimmick a few times. What she's going on at the minute is
Well,
the whole sort of
yeah.
creepy
I
thing.
mean, she's a women's champ there as well, isn't she?
Yeah. And
So
aside from that, I believe she got a degree or something while doing it all as well, didn't she?
that's just a show off, isn't
Yeah.
she? So obviously we spoke about the ones who went on to WWE as well. I'm just curious, and this might be a hard question because obviously, there's so much great talent out there, but is there anyone who kind of stand out for you at the minute? Either just the Scottish or the British kind of indies scene, anyone that you look at and you think, oh, actually, I can see these making it at the highest level.
and there's so many now. It's not like it used to be. It used to be
Yeah.
that talent stuck out like a sore thumb.
Hmm.
Um, but now there's so much talent that the people that don't have talent that shouldn't be out there to begin with, they stick out like a sore thumb. But we've got some like just speaking about our regular roster. I don't think there's like you look at the top like our main guys that are in the ongoing um angles and stuff that you see.
Yeah.
Everybody could offer something in WWE. Um,
Yeah.
Looking sharp. his what he lacks in size, his character, his personality is he's like a rabid dog. Like when he hits the ring, he's like a cartoon character, but with aggression, you know.
Yeah.
Um, somebody that's been about as long as I did, as long as I have, Chris Renfrew.
Mm.
I'm sure he could have contributed. Anybody that's around that long. It's just, not everybody gets the opportunity. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean they couldn't have. It just means they didn't. They weren't in that
Yeah.
right place at the right time. And Hugo Harris is excellent. Um,
Mm.
for another company, they brought in Jake Roberts to be in my corner for a match. And
Yeah, I saw that. I was going to ask about that actually because I was a big Jake fan. I know you mentioned you trained at his school, but yeah, what was that like having him in your corner?
it was the first time that I'd seen him like, I left to go to Canada,
Mm.
and 6 months later, the whole um, RSPCA thing happened,
Mm.
which um, basically, for those that don't know, I think there was accusations of like that the snake wasn't being looked after, and I can promise you that it was, because I was there doing it,
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah.
like I was literally, here's the rat, boil the frozen rat. But the thing was not being starved. I literally had a frozen rat in my hand, put it in a pan, scooped it up with right, okay, let's throw it in, and then the thing just wasn't eaten, you know.
Mm.
Mm.
So it's funny how stories get spun. Um,
Yeah.
but that whole thing happened, and he was back in the States by the time I got home. I tried to reach out a few times. I totally lost touch, never managed to reconnect. So of course I was looking forward to finally, I haven't seen him as an 18 year, like last seen him at 18, seeing him 20 years later.
Yeah.
And I was kind of thinking, God, I wish this had happened 10 years ago when I was still that bit faster, because I'm slowing down now. I'm 14. Um, which brings me to Hugo Harris. Like, I'll wrestle Hugo. I'll make sure it's because he's that good. Like, let's
Yeah.
take that worry away about whoever I'm on with. Like, didn't have
Yeah.
to worry at all. Um, he's excellent. Jake was very impressed with him. Jake was
Oh,
very
that's good.
impressed with him. And I was one thing that I debated before that match, and reconnecting with Jake was worth, like, even if there wasn't the match, just seeing him,
Yeah.
and we I showed him around Scotland, got to properly, like, try and remind him about these things in the old days, because he didn't. I was showing him pictures. You remember that guy? Like, he's like, "Oh, it was a good group," but I could tell that he wasn't quite like remembering everybody. But the more we spoke, the more he started to remember people, and I've seen him since. Like the proper. I'm forever thankful to Dave Lowe at SWE for reconnecting us, because that was a huge deal for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and the finishing move that I use is a variation of the DDT from a fireman's carry.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, so I spin the guy out, and then there's a whiplash effect as the leg. The DDT, it's all about the swing of the leg,
Mhm.
not the hop and jump stuff. It's swing the leg. So that's when you go in the fireman's carry, you've got to have your left foot back, and that's the whiplash. And like, some people are like, they'll say about the finishing move, which was called blunt force trauma before. Somebody else is using that name now, but our commentators in W3L still call it that.
Yeah.
Um, because we came up with it first.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I thought, should I do that? He's going to be so pissed off with me for fucking with the DDT, because he hates people kicking out of it and not using it
Mm.
properly.
Mm.
And that was the bit I was really sort of anxious about. I was like, well, I'm kind of going to have to do it, because it's somewhere that I wrestle every month. They know that,
Yeah.
why
The weight
wouldn't I
over
do
it. Yeah.
it? I can't change it. So I did it. I was, I had an amazing conversation with him after the match. It was me getting feedback for the very first time as an experienced wrestler from the man that kind of started off with. So it was a huge
Yeah.
full circle moment. I was like, Jake, be honest with me. Surely you're going to cuss me out for fucking with the DDT. He said, he was like, no, man, you made it your own. And I was like, you serious? And he was like, yeah, I liked it. So I don't give a
Oh,
fuck
that's
if people
awesome.
think it's pointless doing the spin. The man that made the move said that he likes that variation of it. So because it went
Yeah.
kind of viral, didn't it? The
yeah,
footage of Jake punching out the jackal at ringside. And
yeah.
like there was people like in the you try and like water off a duck's back, but you hear like, oh, people are slagging off your move. I don't care.
Yeah.
Jake said it's
Yeah.
good.
No, no other validation needed. Jake said it's good.
Absolutely, and the fact you use it as a finish as well is, bloody, because
Yeah,
everyone's picking
rightly
it up
so.
as just a transition move, and you're like, it's a DDT. What are you doing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh,
like I say, it
that
does.
it's all and getting guys flip from it as well. Like if you're
Mm.
it just infuriates me, and it's probably because of where I came from that it's such a pet hate. But when I see
Yeah,
somebody
Yeah,
give a DDT and the person does like a little handstand, that your head's being driven in the mat, you wouldn't do a handstand.
no,
Like that's
yeah, no,
not
you'd be out.
or
yeah,
they
No,
flip. Like they wouldn't flip. You'd go face down. That's
yeah,
yeah,
all these
100%.
bullshit ways of delivering it and
There's,
taking it.
yeah, there's
But
selling and then there's overselling, I think.
oh yeah,
continue with the list. Iron Drew Marshall. Um, he's fantastic just now, really on a roll.
Mm.
Um, W3L's, I was going to say unsung hero, but I'd like to think he's a, we put him out there and celebrate Taylor Bryden.
Mm.
Excellent, such a hard worker, and he's been here since 2005. Sorry,
Wow,
excuse me. Taylor's been wrestling, had his very first match against Drew Galloway in W3L in
That's cool.
2005.
that's
Yeah.
some it's some
That's it.
resume
So
then.
he's been with you pretty much throughout, then, hasn't he?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Sabbatical
that's
here
awesome.
and there, but yeah,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
we've not seen him since Mr. Renfrew pile drove him through a television, but I've every faith he'll be back.
Yeah,
I like it.
we've been
Little hint there.
well, exactly, yeah. You'll have to watch on Hooked on Wrestling to find out. No, but we've shameless plug. Yeah, we've been is it Jack Ripley and Natasha Swan.
Yes, yeah.
We've been seeing some of their stuff lately. So yeah, if definitely get them in W3L at some point. Definitely unique to say the least.
I will check him out. I'll have a look.
Yeah,
It's
There's loads of people I'd love to use,
yeah.
yeah.
but there is only so many spots.
Oh, that's
And
That's the
the
challenge,
thing.
isn't it?
Carl, you like pushing. You do that with progress, so like you go. Yeah, I should.
Just, matchmaking. Yeah,
That's it. The matchmaker. Yeah, I like it.
I like it.
I
So I
have
know.
to say,
There's a couple.
I have to say sometimes, and that's what some people should keep in mind. Like if I think enough of the person, I'll say I actually really like your work, but I
Mm.
can't promise you anything because
Yeah,
if I bring you in, I have to get rid of somebody.
Yeah.
yeah,
And people don't think of it like that. They just think it's like a knock on them. Oh, if I keep
Mm.
sending him my stuff and he doesn't use me, well,
mm,
who am I going to get? Who from my team do you think I should get rid of to make room from you? And that rotation does happen, but
yeah,
if you use everybody, there'd be no consistency because you'd have everybody wrestling for you once every 3 months and then replaced for the next person, the next person, the next person. I
Yeah.
wish I could use everybody that was talented, but I don't think
yeah.
anybody could.
No.
Well, it's like as you said. I think you referenced before. You've got hundreds of emails and 14 slots. It's a very very difficult,
Yeah. The math
very
doesn't
difficult
math.
task, very difficult balance to do. I imagine.
But if you're good at laying
Uh,
cable down, it gives you a foot in the door.
If you've got a
I
bottle
love
of
it.
sticky remover spray, then
You might get a bit of that. I'm not suggesting we're popular enough by any means, but you might get the odd one in and then I'll go, oh, I saw that interview, and I might throw some other talents out there.
You never know.
If I start seeing that on CVs now,
It's whether they try
uh,
and challenge your crown for putting posters up, and they might have to be settled
That's
by it.
it. Poster off.
somebody like how typists give like their words per minute. Somebody could put like their taping cable. I do 3 feet per per 5 seconds or whatever.
Yeah.
I love it.
To be fair, that's more useful in a CV than how many belts they've won for promotions that I've not heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that.
I'm sorry. I'm not being an ass. I'm just telling the truth.
No, like you say, it's the reality of it, isn't it? It's you gotta consider what the audience are looking for as well.
Yeah, it's like the poster thing all over again, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Doesn't sell your shows.
But I mean, one of the things that resonated with us about W3L is your ethos to sort of both fans and other organisations, where you're committed to treating them with respect and consideration. I think obviously throughout our conversation, you sort of clearly demonstrated that ethos as well. But I just wondered, in such a competitive industry, sort of, it might seem an odd question, but what sort of made you choose to take that approach?
The bakery example is going to come in here, right? It was just nothing to do with the Bulgarian baker. So again, basing everything on logic. I've seen so much infighting within wrestling, like just pettiness. I would say probably more than half of the promotions that are active at the moment exist because the person running them fell out with somebody that they were working for. I'm just going to start my own promotion with my friends. That was a thing I used to say for a while. Wrestling friends, like the trainers thing.
Love it.
If I'm going in somewhere, I don't want to be to an area, geographical area. I don't want to be at odds with a promotion that's close by. I'll try not to step on their foot. I'm not going to run somebody's venue that they ran 6 months ago because it's just, we're a niche product. We are a niche product. You cannot prove that wrong because it's a fact. You're not going to go to the wrestling 4 times a week. Everybody needs a hairdresser. So there can be 20 hairdressers in a town and it'll survive. If you wanted to start up a bakery and there was a bakery in the town that you were looking at, the village that you were looking at, and that bakery was really struggling. They were struggling to keep the doors open. The baker was having to clean as well after his shift because he couldn't afford a cleaner. It was there just wasn't the market. As I said earlier about the gap in the market. But you really wanted to start a bakery, you'd move and start it somewhere else where it was viable. You wouldn't set up opposite him and start hiding his business cards when you saw them in other shops. But in wrestling, that's just part it's ridiculous. It's stupidity. There's an area of Scotland where there's 3 promotions that all insist on within traveling distance of each other, and they all insist on running them the same day. Everybody will say, "Oh, it's not me. I had the date for." Just work it out, guys. This is fucking ridiculous. Nobody's winning. Nobody's winning. If you spaced it out over there's 4 weeks in a month. There's four weekends in a month. If you just manage to put your big boy pants on and all have a chat, and this again, I'm not saying all 3 are at fault. There's ones that I speak to, ones that I don't, and I'm not accusing either way. There's maybe just one that's at fault. But if they all just put their big boy pants on and had a chat about it, run 3 different weekends, there may actually be people that can afford to go to all 3 events. You run them on the same fucking day. There's a small pie, and you're just fighting for scraps of it when you could talk to each other and make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah, just dilutes it for everyone, doesn't it? Because obviously not everyone can physically be at all three at
Oh
once.
yeah,
Whereas,
exactly.
you
Well,
know,
you straight
at least
away
give them a chance.
it boils down to willingness.
Mm.
See, one last thing on the bakery example. You're not going to get the cashier and the cleaner offering to work for free just so the
Mm.
baker can still get paid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wonder how that applies to wrestling. I'm just
that
throwing
comes.
that. You
No, it's
can't
fair.
you can't compare like I just want us to all be proud of wrestling and build it into something that the people that we grew up idolizing had.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I want to see it. I'm not saying that nobody does. There's some people that do it really well. There's people that are more successful than me. There's certainly people in terms of the internet and the worldwide recognition that are far more successful than me, that do things really well. But unfortunately, that's the exception and not the rule because of, in my mind, small-mindedness and just stubbornness and just
Yeah.
yeah. Comes back to that whole sustainability piece you were saying before.
Yeah.
It's the crux of all of it, isn't it? It's
sustainable
how,
wrestling.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It needs to happen, doesn't it? I'm made up that you kind of driving that forward because as you say, there's a different promotion that pops up every other week, and as you say, they're just trying to flog tickets, selling them for five here and there, and then the
Yeah.
wrestlers aren't making money, and it's just not where we should
It's
be in the industry.
perception as well. Like, what metric are we using for success? There's Everybody can book the best card that
Hmm.
that they have in their head. Like they
Mm.
could, how would you make W3L's next show better? Right. Well, I'd get Steve Austin in, and he's going to wrestle the Undertaker, and the one of the tribute promoters has like a Manchester accent, and I joked that it was for copyright reasons because he'd go, "You're on with Thundertaker tonight," and like if he did
Love
got done for copyright, it's not the Undertaker, it's Thundertaker, like
Brilliant.
lightning. um, but anybody can do that. But it's how you make money out of that. Like, who has the better show? The person that spends 10 grand on flights and money and wages, sells out their building and has £100 left over in the tin at the end, or somebody that budgeted, sold 250 tickets and made a few £100 that by the way, like I'm not sitting here like clawing in loads of money from wrestling. I do reinvest pretty much everything that I make from wrestling to,
Yeah,
and that's where you've seen the progression. If I was pocketing stuff, you
Mm.
wouldn't see the and
no,
Yeah,
it is
absolutely.
to build it, but it goes on things that are gonna it goes on an investment that's gonna make more money rather than something that isn't actually giving a return. It's just giving an ego boost or a statement. Every now and again, you can splash some cash and make a statement, but
Yeah,
if it
Yeah,
if
that's
it's
to use
not
the right way, doesn't it?
if it's not floating as a business, it's certainly you certainly don't want to brag about selling out and not making money. And I've
Yeah.
heard somebody do it, sold out, not made a bloody penny though. Like, are you expecting sympathy from me, or like
yeah.
how on
Maybe you
earth is
should
that
maybe you should
even
look at
possible?
that. Yeah, revisit the business plan on that one.
That's it.
Jesus.
Um, so I
But
suppose
yeah,
looking
so
ahead then.
the statement that you're talking about on our website, and that's something that's funny that you mentioned it because I was literally thinking the other day that that's the statement that I want to try and tweak that and actually make it more of a. I think there's something I can do with that to try and help. I don't want to help any individual, but to help like the industry,
Yeah.
but it's weighing that up with not arming people with information that they'd be dangerous with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it comes back
But
to that sustainability aspect. You're definitely on something
and
with that,
and
I
the
think.
page may change. That page that you found that mission statement on, that I think that's probably due to be adapted slightly, and that
Mm.
sustainable wrestling term is probably going to make an appearance. And I was literally thinking about it on the cross trainer yesterday morning at the gym.
Yeah, no, that seems like a smart move.
Indeed.
So you mentioned kind of a couple of changes there. Looking ahead, obviously to the future of W3L, what does success look like for you now? Like we've mentioned obviously the production value and reinvesting into the business and things like that. Is it like what are you kind of targeting for like the next year and beyond? Is it more growth? Is it kind of that kind of sustainability we spoke about, or just carrying on doing things the right way?
Um, Super long term, like the end goal is to be
Hmm.
able to provide people with, maybe not, like, I'm not naive enough to think that in my lifetime wrestling is going to be one of the top professions, like the most popular jobs. But I would like to be able to have a team working for us, and
Yeah.
actually being either um either their income, or at least part of their income.
Yeah,
Which some wrestlers are able to do. I'm not saying nobody's able to earn a living from wrestling, because that would be disrespecting people that have actually overcome all the odds to do just that. But I would like to be able to have, like, personally be able to be a, not just now and again, but like be able to have a team of people that are like, well, I only work part-time because I also work for W3L. And that's the,
yeah,
the long-term goal, is to make that float enough to do that. Um,
Yeah.
in order to get there, we need to never ever lose sight of selling tickets, but also marry that with continuing to embrace the wrestling fans as well as the casual fan base, because that's what we've always that's what almost purposefully has steered away from for so long. But now I feel we're ready for it. We want eyes on W3L. We want people watching the
yeah.
YouTube channel, and we're growing in the right way. This time last
100%.
year, I we went down to I actually went down to see Jake because he was
Oh,
over for
nice.
for the love of wrestling. And
Yeah.
I pestered the team, and I was like, "Look, I'm going to be there anyway." Drop Jake's name, as which people might joke that I do a little too often, particularly since we reconnected. But did I mention,
I don't
but
play. I'd mention it a
I'd,
lot
I'd
more.
I'd love to be best mate of Jake. In
do you know
fact,
what?
get
For
get
for
get him on the
so
show for us.
for so long, I kind of stopped referencing my time with him, because I
Mm.
thought, if anybody then says to him, "Oh, there's this guy in Scotland that's and he'd be like, no idea who he is," and I was terrified of
Yeah.
that happening.
Mm.
But now, like, so I think now, actually, when he's like, he even mentioned on his podcast, that was one of my old students that I was in that video with. And so
Oh,
I
nice.
think, because I stopped saying his name for so long, maybe I'm guilty of name dropping every and again, which I
Oh
take the
no.
No,
Yeah,
piss,
no one blames you
which
for
I take the
it's
piss
Jake
out
the
of others
Snake.
for.
It's
Um,
Jake the Snake. You can reference him
that.
as many times. It'll never be too much, I don't think.
Never.
so eventually, for the Love of Wrestling team were kind enough to give me a table. I was like, "I just want to do a bit of business while I'm down there. I'll give away some posters, let people know about W3L," and they were kind enough to give me the table. And before I went there, I wanted to measure the success of our, where are we at the moment? I want to see how we had Demand Progress Plus on one side of the flyer, W3L on YouTube, Wrestling
Mm.
Showdown um, on the other side, and I wanted to see if I could measure, do we get results from this? So I looked at what the growth had been, and it was 80%,
Wow.
80,
Wow.
on the
Bloody hell.
previous 365-day period. So in through 2024, because for the Love of Wrestling is February, so if we just say 2024, we had
Yeah.
84% growth. Sorry, 80% growth in terms of, and it was both watch hours and views, 80% on 2023. And then I looked at it the other day, and it was 82. So that's
Yeah.
a slightly higher percentage off
Yeah.
an 80% higher number. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not kidding myself that that's going to continue at that rate. People are
Mm.
discovering us now because we're reaching out into those circles.
Mm.
Eventually, it will plateau. If I look at it in January next year, and see its 50% growth. It's on a number that was 80% higher than the previous year, and then 82% higher than the following year. And then, okay, that much larger audience has grown 50%. That's still amazing. I'd be really happy.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
But that's what we continue to focus on, get engaged we had our biggest. I'm so thankful to everybody that's dropped, because I don't want to come across as like just bragging about numbers and stuff. But it's out of pride, and it's for the work of my team. It's out of the work of my team that are connecting with the people that are giving us a chance, because they're coming back. You don't get that growth from people that watch us. Oh, this is shit, and turn it off and never watch it again. I mean, somebody thinks that, and that's their prerogative. But like, enough people are still coming back that the numbers sustain. And we had our highest number of T-shirts sold in December, just gone in the lead up to Christmas, and that shows that that T-shirts sold online, not at an actual show, and that shows that people are engaging in the wrestlers they're seeing, that's connecting with them, and they're wanting to actually get a piece of merchandise, a T-shirt to wear, that type of thing. That's what we need to focus on and continue growing, as well as polishing the production. We have a production wish list that we will continue to work on and chip away at. We know the things that need polished production wise. It's Rome wasn't built in a day, or 25, 23 years. No,
100%.
We'll get there. I suppose the next logical goal, and something that I've recently been speaking about and trying to motivate my guys with, that this is what we need to work towards, is live. To do the big events live would be the next logical step.
That'd be a whole different level of chaos.
It's not the next step, but it's the next big step.
Goal.
Yeah.
I'd certainly like to see that.
Yeah, it's amazing to see the growth that you've had. Obviously, you're breaking records, maintaining like 80%, 82%. It's amazing to see. And hopefully, obviously, being on Hooked On now as well and growing that audience base will just get even more eyeballs on you. But
it's a great team to be a part of as well. A big thank you to Martin for having us on board, and Lee initially, and Peter's been fantastic. He's been more involved now. And all the other content providers that have come on board as well. It's we're in good company on there. There's a good buzz about the channel in general, and I hear they've got some fantastic podcasts on there too.
Love it. Peter, we made up with the shout out as well, because he likes to watch these back, doesn't he? So
100%. But he's likewise, he's a big fan of yourself and everything you're doing, and it's clear to see why. But I mean, we've taken up so much of your time. Thank you so much for chatting to us, letting us go behind the promotion, and kind of just giving us that insight. It's been really great talking to you. I guess before we let you go, if anyone who doesn't know, can you just let them know how they can obviously keep up to date with you, with W3L, and just everything you've got coming up over the next kind of couple of months?
So yeah, absolutely. If you want to follow me, I'm on all social media platforms, Mike Musso, or Mike Musso W3L, I believe, on Twitter. I think it's just Mike Musso and everything else. Get yourself a Big Trouble Mister shirt. They're on sale somewhere. You'll know it's me, because that's the graphic. It's been the graphic for years. W3LWrestling.com. All our links are on there. I don't. Is that dated now? Just using a website as a.
Nah.
W3L Wrestling on everything. W3LWrestling.com will take you to all our different things. But if you just W3L Wrestling on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, and Twitter's X now, isn't it? X.
It is, yeah.
Just all over the place.
And watch Wrestling Showdown, the longest running weekly wrestling broadcast on YouTube. Every Thursday, 7 p.m. It'll get you set for the next big Hooked On wrestling event.
Amazing. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
A to the K. A to the K.
To the K.